What's going on? Welcome to Move Fast Lift Heavy podcast. This is Joe Roscoe, co-host of MFLH Pod. If you're tuning in for the first time, please take a moment, subscribe, like the podcast, comment, tell your friends, swipe up, double tap, do all the sharing. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you haven't tried out Christian's program yet, Train with CH, you can do that on movefastliftheavy.com. He also has a pump program. I mean, come on. Look at that back right there if you're watching on YouTube. So hit up that pump program or check out our clothes on movefastliftheavy.com. Let's bring him on, the co-host of the podcast, but the main man in everyone's hearts, standing at 6'1", 203 pounds, from Long Island, New York, originally from Brooklyn, bun-headed Christian Harris. Welcome to the pod, Christian. How you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. I'm doing great. It's Thursday, the week before semifinals. So, training's kind of deloading a bit.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for our guest today. He knows all about training, so I'm really psyched to talk to him today. But yeah, Granite Games is coming up next week, so time to lay down the wood, time to get after it.
Absolutely. Still waiting on one more workout to be released. I am pretty unhappy with the way they've been releasing these workouts compared to every other semifinals. Every other semifinals has released the workouts all in one shot, and they're doing this like slow drip day by day, releasing one at a time. So it's been tough for me from the programming side to get ahead of programming for the upcoming weeks, just because they've taken so long to release everything. So I'm just kind of taking it day by day, I guess.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, talking about programming, a programming master, why don't you bring on our guest?
Yeah, our next guest is a man of quite a few talents, but I think he's most known for his weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting background, and probably a name you've heard of if you are familiar with weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting, Catalyst Athletics, the man behind it all, Greg Everett.
What's up,
Thanks
Greg?
for having me. How you guys doing?
The pod.
We're doing great, man.
Awesome.
Excited to have you here on the show.
Why is it that all these different semifinals can release workouts at different rates? Isn't that a completely ridiculous, unfair setup?
Yeah, I mean, so the way it worked out this year is that CrossFit headquarters chose two events that were going to be consistent across all the semifinals, but each independently run is also putting their spin on 4 events. So there's 6 events total, 2 of which are run by CrossFit headquarters, and then 4 of which are run independently from semifinals to semifinals.
I don't approve.
Yeah, like it's
a competition. How can you choose the people to compete at the CrossFit Games if they are not competing in the same events? They did that years ago, and it was a disaster. There were so many people who shouldn't have been there, and so many people who should have who weren't, simply because the luck of the draw of their regional events. I don't get it. Thankfully, I don't do CrossFit, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Well, let's talk about what you do. I think for starters, let's talk about how you got into weightlifting.
Oh boy. Well, this was back in the olden days. I don't know how. I'm probably a little older than you guys. At least I feel like it. So I was training starting in basically late 80s, early 90s. So this is like back when there was no internet and still a few dinosaurs wandering around. So we just didn't have access to information as easily. I couldn't look up, Olympic weightlifting coach near me. And of course, unfortunately, I found out years later that I grew up 45 minutes away from Jim Schmitz, who was like the most accomplished weightlifting coach in the history of the country. And so had I just one day happened to pick up a phone book from South San Francisco and looked for him, I could have found him, but why would I do that? So I kind of came around to it just with having a general attraction to training, right? So I played every sport you can think of, all the classic American boy sports, and then of course all the weird ones. I rode bike trials competitively. I was a rock climber and all this other stuff. But what always appealed to me across the board was the training and the preparation for those sports. And in many cases, kind of more than the sport itself. And so once I kind of realized that there was this sport of weightlifting, it kind of just made sense to me, because the sport kind of is the training in a lot of ways. And they are, it's more irreducible than other sports. If you're a thrower, if you're a football player, your sport doesn't resemble the training at all. If you're a weightlifter, it's essentially the same thing, with a few extra decorations thrown in there for good measure. So I kind of was self-taught through whatever limited material I could find, which, again, olden days was like books, which there weren't many of those really either, which is why I ended up writing my own years later, because I had been so disappointed as a kid trying to understand how to do this stuff. And so I don't know, I was better at that than anything else I did. So I stuck with it for longer.
I like your, on your gram, it says nonsense free weightlifting instruction. What do you mean by that?
I mean that every day I have to get on social media and I want to cry. It's like the most soul deadening, like frustrating, horrific experience of my life, dealing with social media. And it's one of these things where it's like, I love it for the fact that it provides me multiple platforms to provide information to help people for free. What I can't stand about it is the way that it is set up to force you to be someone that you may not be, or perform and produce content in ways that you do not believe is the best way to present it. So if you look at, say, like my website, I crush Google. Like my SEO is insane, but you know what? It's because we have 700 articles and 1,500 videos and 60 training programs, and we have content. And so we are rewarded for creating content that people use and look for and come back to, period. Like that's the end of the story. Now take Instagram, or God forbid TikTok or something like that, and you are rewarded for doing what is most popular across the board, totally irrespective of the genre of the kind of content. So like for me as a weightlifting coach, if I want my stuff to really be popular and get out there, I have to act like a douchebag, because that's what's most popular on TikTok, right? I gotta do a song and dance, some soft shoe routine to a music that I can't stand, instead of just like, hey, here's some super helpful, useful stuff you can do as an athlete or as a coach. It just doesn't work. It doesn't get shown. So that's the position I've been in with Instagram for a couple of years now. It's gotten worse and worse and worse since I got on the platform, where it's like I have a fairly big following, but my content just gets shown less and less and less. Like to my own followers, they don't even get shown it. It's insane.
It's actually
so
funny
I'm over
you
here.
say that, because I've been following you for a long time. And, just today, just to kind of check out what you've had recently, I'm like, I haven't even seen half of these things that you've posted.
No, because I'm not
weird.
showing my butt and dancing around to fucking Kanye West or whatever. Like, I don't like, I can't. And I know, I understand intellectually and rationally how to do it, like how to manipulate the platform and become popular, but I'm not willing to do it. I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather just like gradually fade into obscurity than have to like look at myself in the mirror each night and go, I'm so embarrassed to be myself. This is awful. So
yeah,
here we are.
That's real.
Starting this podcast off on a positive note.
Listen, you're not.
It's real.
You're not holding back, and you're not giving fluff answers, which is going to make this episode amazing. So please.
So the answer to your question is that's what I mean by no nonsense.
Yeah.
Here's quality information that's actually going to help you from someone who actually, to some extent, knows what they're talking about, versus someone who is just kind of clowning around and plagiarizing serious people's work and repackaging it, which is my other issue with social media is like we celebrate the curators of other people's content more than content creators. It is so insane, like, to sit back as someone who creates content, and I know I'm not the only person who feels like that, and watch people just like dominate these platforms who literally do nothing but go through and comb through other people's stuff and repost it. Like, what are we doing, guys? You're killing me. Anyway.
No. Okay, so let's get into
any questions that don't make me want to
I don't know. Let's see. My next question about content creation is like, you business wise, you know, we like to chat business. Like, did you just like writing articles, doing videos or whatever, or did you have a rhyme or reason for how you built your following? Because there's a million Olympic lifting coaches out there, but they don't have the brand and success and reach that you have had. What was that like when you were first starting out? Did you have a plan in place, or was it just organic?
I really still don't have a plan. That's the best part is, and that's why I like what I do so much, is because I don't have to have a plan. And so, yeah, early on, it was the combination of me enjoying creating content, whether it's articles, videos, books, whatever, doing seminars, helping people. That's what I liked doing. And I discovered through experience that I was pretty good at it. Like, people responded well to what I was doing. And there was a combination of that, and then recognizing that there was this gaping hole in, I don't want to say the market, because I wasn't looking at it from a business perspective per se. It was more like there was this hole, the dearth of information on this stuff. You look back 15 years plus when I started doing this, and like, you couldn't see a video of a snatch or a clean and jerk on USA Weightlifting's website. You could not even find out what the competition lifts were from the national governing body of the sport. It was ridiculous. And, again, as a young kid wanting to, hey, how do I learn this? I didn't even realize it was a sport for a long time after I really knew the movements. I didn't quite understand that as a young kid. Because how would I have known unless I just happened to like grow up, say, like maybe in Florida or Georgia, where, weightlifting, bench press and clean and jerk is a high school sport. But like, outside of a situation like that, like, you don't know about it unless you just happen to know somebody. And so it was just this constant like compulsion to produce content, because I had a lot to say. And again, I was getting good response to it. And so early on, I was like, wow, this is super inappropriate for me to do, because I'm not really an expert. Like, there are coaches out there and athletes out there who are far more experienced, but they're not doing this. They're not interested. They're not willing. They're not capable for whatever reason. So I just said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? People are going to make fun of me. And I was terrified of that. I was terrified of these, really experienced, established coaches looking at me like, who is this guy writing a book when he hasn't accomplished very much in the sport? But I was very pleasantly surprised and very grateful that so many of them were really supportive, because they got the book and they realized like, oh, okay, this is like legitimate information. And I think, you know, now that thing's in its third edition, fourth eventually, and it's been the book to go to since like 2008 for weightlifting. So apparently I did something right by accident.
Yeah, and you did it first. It sounds like you were a trailblazer. You saw there was a gaping hole that was not filled, and you were the first to kind of jump in it.
Yeah, well, and that goes back to your question of how did I kind of get out in the lead there and build such a big brand. And it was, so much of it was just being fortunate with the timing. That's just kind of how it worked out, as there wasn't competition back then. I mean, again, people have trouble like understanding the internet landscape at that time. YouTube didn't exist. My original exercise library was QuickTime videos. And I mean, half the people I'm talking to right now don't even know what that is. And so like I have gone through these eras where I've had to completely retool my content to keep up with like the technology that's changing in these different platforms. And, you know, now everything was centralized. It's just the website. Well, and then it was Facebook. Everyone wants everything on Facebook. Thankfully I never had to do the MySpace era, but, you know, then it was Twitter, and then it was Instagram. And I fought it for so long. Like, Instagram, this is stupid. Like, this is for little kids. Like, what are we doing here, guys? This is not for serious people who want real information. And clearly I misjudged that. Like, I misjudge most things about popularity these days. But so it's just been this like constant scramble to kind of like keep up and keep providing this information in all these new areas, which are all slightly different. They all have little different rules and different formats. And it's kind of a nightmare, to be honest.
It is definitely tough to try to keep up with all that. I mean, I remember 2013 is about when I started following your stuff, when I got into my first weightlifting meet and seeing that library grow. What are some of the things that you're going to be doing in the next couple of years to provide maybe like some more newer, updated content on the site?
Well, a few things. I actually am very slowly working on some updates to that exercise library, and especially the more used videos. You know, updating them with new video, you know, voiceover instructions, stuff like that. But again, you know, you do something like that, and because it's through a platform like YouTube, you know, I have exercise videos on there that have hundreds of thousands of views. If I change that, that goes back to zero. And so now I start losing, you know, these crazy algorithms are not going to show those videos as much. So it's like, maybe I'm helping somebody who's seeing this for the first time with a better presentation, but I'm also kind of screwing myself at the same time, because now I'm taking steps backwards in that visibility. I'm working on a kind of app-based snatch, clean and jerk learning deal, so people will be able to kind of go through my learning progressions for those things in a little app format that everybody's so enamored with. God, what else? I got to do a 4th edition of the book. It's long overdue. I just haven't had any time. So yeah,
these 1-minute tutorials are great,
dude. They're brutal. And people don't get, like, those 1-minute tutorials.
It's a lot of work to put in.
3 to 4 hours sometimes trying to find video, you know, like, oh, we'll just use videos of your lifters. Yeah, dude, you know how many videos of my lifters I have? And you know how hard it is to go through those and try to find exactly what you're trying to show? It's a lot of work. And so that's what's frustrating, is like, oh, you got such a big following on Instagram. It's like, yeah, well, here's this video that they showed to 12 people, you know, after all this work, and they're, oh, this is the best content. Well, that's cool. I wish other people could see it, you know, and there's no way to do it. I can pay to advertise, but like, come on, guys. Anyway, this is why Instagram won't verify me, because I just talk shit about them all the time. And they're watching everything.
I have a question for you. So in your experience, things in the beginning in your teachings may have been more of a simplistic approach. Have things become more complex in maybe exercise selection, programming development, things like that over time?
It's a good question, because I think, interestingly, in a lot of ways, things have gotten more simple than early on for me. And so in the one sense, yes, things have gotten more complex because I've learned more through experience, through working with other coaches and all these different athletes. I found better ways to do things that maybe involve, definitely a greater range of exercises in a lot of cases and things like that. Different programming approaches, excuse me. But at the same time, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the years is that it's really easy to overcomplicate things unnecessarily and counterproductively, right? And that's the common problem we have with people who are learning the lifts these days, or very early on in training them, is that they are just inundated with information. And so much of it is overly complex because people are trying to impress you and sell you something. Here, this is a Chinese technique secret. It's like, no, it's not. That was in my book in 2008. It's just that it looks flashy now. There's just contradictory information, and people don't have, if you don't have the experience, you don't have that frame of reference to evaluate the source, right? You don't know. There's a guy on YouTube who has 200,000 followers. Like, oh, he must be good. He must, be a good coach. No, he might just be really good at using YouTube. And so it's difficult to kind of try to cut through that stuff. But again, I think that's why I come back to that simplicity. Is it's easy for us to get carried away because that stuff is novel and exciting. And really, I think one of the biggest problems with my own career as a lifter is that I tried to get ahead of myself, and I didn't trust the fundamentals as much as I should have. And that would have gotten me a lot farther than I did get. Right. So I was trying to kind of get ahead of my own game and add this and this and this and do this differently. And it was like, hey man, why don't you spend the next 8 years getting your squats up because you got the legs of a kitten? That would have solved 90% of my problems right there. You know what I mean? Let me just apologize if I sound like I'm insane right now. It's because I have not slept much in the past few days, so my answers are probably all over the map.
No, this is one of my favorite episodes we've ever done right now.
All right, I'll try not to say anything too terrible.
No, please do. It's great for Instagram content,
Yeah, perfect.
Just teasing.
Come on, Instagram. I'm a nice guy.
Go ahead, Christian.
I think for some people that might not be familiar with weightlifting, I think maybe from you it'd be good to hear. Maybe you can briefly explain how weightlifting meet works, and then
Sure.
A follow-up question to that, how you would work your way from a local event, like a local sanctioned event, to nationals and beyond.
So weightlifting competition in principle is really simple, right? You have two competition lifts: the snatch, which is directly from the floor to overhead, and the clean and jerk, which is floor to shoulders, and then shoulders to overhead. Everybody gets 3 attempts at each one. Your best of each is added together to create your total, and then you are ranked on total, and that's how you win. You get the highest total, you win. Where it gets tricky is, unlike in powerlifting, where you're basically assigned an order, a lifting order. So, hey, I have, X number of lifts until I do my first attempt, and then another X until this attempt, whatever. It simplifies things. In weightlifting, the bar can only move up. So basically everyone declares their opener. The lowest opener gets loaded on the bar. When that session starts, that lifter goes out there, takes that lift. But then what happens is you have multiple changes you can make to each attempt. So now you have a bunch of athletes and coaches who are jockeying around for position and trying to play tricks on each other. So things are constantly moving. So as a coach or an athlete who's coaching yourself, you can't just sit back and do your warm-up all leisurely and under control. You have to constantly be watching the scoreboard and seeing what everyone else is doing and changing your timing. Maybe you got to speed up your warm-ups. Maybe you got to slow down. You got to add another set. You got to take another set out, all these different things. You have to make last-minute decisions on weights. So maybe you wanted to open at 101, but now you have to do 102 for some reason. So it gets really complicated in that sense strategically. and kind of administratively, which I'll admit is the thing I like least about weightlifting competition, is I want to see the lifters lift. Like, I want to see who can lift the most weight. That's the sport, weightlifting. And instead, too much of the time, it turns into this weird background war between coaches and basically just like secretarial work. Like, well, I'm going to go over here and change this number and sign this card real quick, and now you're screwed. And so it's not that my lifter could lift more than you, it's that I burned your clock and now your lifter has no rest and missed that lift. So like things like that to me kind of pollute what should be a very pure sport in my mind. But that being said, when you're at that local level and just getting started, you very rarely even see that. You don't have to worry about it. But definitely, if you can get someone to help you and warm you up and handle that timing, so you can just focus on doing snatches, doing clean and jerks, and then having fun. As far as moving from local to kind of national level, well, we kind of have regional level now. We have the American Open Series, which we did not have for years. It was basically you went from local straight to national level, and so it was a big gap there. I would say get experience, right? Do as many local meets as you can and get really familiar with the process. Get very comfortable and confident with competing, so you're not having to worry about that on top of the actual athletic performance aspect. When you are wanting to work up to that greater level, you also seek out a coach. Seek out a legitimate coach who has produced athletes at that level, who works with a range of athletes at that level. They didn't just have 10 years ago and then that was just kind of a fluke. And make sure that it's someone, of course, that you can have a good relationship with. They communicate well, you can communicate well with them. They understand what your goals are. They understand that you are trying to get to a national championships or an American Open or whatever it is. Because so much of the complaints I hear from people these days is my coach doesn't pay attention to me because they don't think I'm serious or whatever. It's like, well, it could partially be your fault for not explaining that to them. But, coaches these days are busy. They have a lot of clients, especially ones who do remote and local people. So you have to be assertive. You have to really say, hey, this is what I want to do. Are you the person to help me with that? And if not, you might have to go with someone else, which might mean remote these days. Wow. Stunned silence from the crowd.
No, we play this game. We play this game like it's. You're a cool guy, Greg. So we'll just talk it out right now. Christian, we need to come up with like a signal for who's gonna ask the next question, because so oftentimes, Greg, I tend to talk a lot, and Christian's a little bit more quiet naturally. So I feel like I step on him a lot.
You just need baseball signs. It's easy,
right? I need to just give a little notes to let Christian know, like, okay, I got the next question.
Let me get one question in there about the weightlifting meet and the little chess match that gets played between coaches.
All right,
do you think that's something that will ever be changed?
No, I think it's too deeply woven into the fabric of the sport at this point. We've seen a lot of rule changes over the decades. We eliminated an entire lift. There used to be the clean and press. Different rules about execution have changed. The bar didn't used to be able to touch the body during the clean. That's why it was called a clean. Different things like that. But that approach, I think a lot of people totally disagree with me on it. They think that's exciting. They like that part of the sport. And they probably outnumber me. If it's anything like my opinions on most things, that I'm probably in the minority. But I can't see that changing. I would see them doing stuff like getting rid of the press out rule long before they changed that.
What are your thoughts on the press out rule? What's your stance on
I'm all for it. I don't have any problem with it. And I think people complaining about it, I understand, because it can be very frustrating to see lifts get turned down that you think were good, especially if they were your own lifts or your athletes' lifts. But the solution is not getting rid of the rule. The solution is lifters and judges both doing their jobs better. I mean, that's honestly usually the solution to most problems these days is people are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not taking it seriously. And, of course, there's arguably, a level of corruption within any sport. And so there are often very questionable calls in high level competitions and jury turnovers and things like that. But I think ultimately removing the press out rules is not going to solve anything. It's just going to allow the sport to devolve into something that it was not intended to be. And one of the reasons why weightlifting is so different from, say, a sport like powerlifting is the nature of the lifts. And part of that is the kind of the dynamic nature, the speed, the explosiveness, the balance, the stability, the timing, these things that don't exist in, say, a bench press, a squat, or a deadlift. So you start doing things like eliminating a press out rule, and you're removing so much of that character of the sport. I think that you're not doing anybody any favors. Maybe a few fans here and there who are pissed because they want their favorite guy to win. But you know how I feel about pleasing fans, clearly, at this point.
No, I can't imagine.
I'm just kidding. I love people. That's why I get bothered so much by what they do.
Okay, understood. When you were saying they just need to do their job better, not the judges, but the athletes, what do you mean by that for the athlete? Just meaning leave no doubt? Like
Exactly. That's exactly what I tell people. If you do not want to get red lights, don't put judges in a position to have to make that decision. Now, to be fair, there are athletes who don't physically have the capability to, say, like, hyperextend an elbow and truly get it locked out. One of my best lifters, world championship level lifter, national champion, her elbows do not extend fully like that. So every jerk for her is like, we're all back there fully clenched, sweating, like, please just get this thing, because she has to push up on that bar so much harder than her counterparts who have nice, kind of bony structure support there. But she's out there clean and jerking 300 pounds the hardest possible way. And I still don't want to get rid of the press out rule. I still think it belongs in the sport. I'm doing everything I can as a coach to help her be able to do everything she can as an athlete to not have to worry about getting red lighted in a competition. She, and again, I say this, she got red lighted for her clean and jerk at the World Championships this last year. Like, it was devastating. But you know what? The rule is not the problem. She had a bad day and she did not lock out her jerk. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And you can sit there and say, oh, this is a stupid rule. It's like, well, maybe you should have just followed the rules better.
Sure. So my question, Christian, put my baseball sign in here. You just said you love people. What's your dynamic like at your gym with visitors? Do you have a lot of people that want to come to your gym to train?
We have a lot of people who want to come, and we don't let any of them come. I was gonna ask. So our circumstances are so much different than they were when we had the big gym in California. So we used to have a 5,000 square foot facility, open to the public. We had fitness classes. We had the weightlifting team. We had weightlifting classes, all this different stuff, private training. Everybody was welcome, but now what people kind of, I think, don't understand as well, and it's not always clear, I guess, is that our gym is our home. Like, our gym is our garage, which means that if you're in our gym, you're in our home. And so the rules change, right? It's not some gym that's a 15-minute drive away from my house. Like, you're kind of coming into my home, and it's this more intimate kind of situation. But the other part of it too is that Amy and I are not coaching in the gym all day long. Like, in California, I was there from, say, 7 to 7 every day, most days. So I'm there anyway. Here, I'm working in my office most days, or whatever I have to do. I only have the whole team. We only have one local athlete here. That's my lifter, Lily, my 64 kilo lifter. Everybody else that Amy and I coach is remote. So when people are like, oh, can I come shadow you at the gym? It's like, no, you don't understand. There's nothing to shadow me doing. Like, you want to watch me mowing the lawn? It's not like I can't do internships. I would love to help you out, but it's not something you're going to stand over my shoulder right here in my office and breathe on my neck while I type stuff. So we offer training camps to the public, like a seminar style thing where it's a 4-day, 6 or 7 training session sort of thing. And they're all here and we do a dinner, on Saturday nights, and everybody's hanging out and drinking and having a good old time. But on a day-to-day basis, it's just not something we can do. Love you guys, but sorry, you're not invited.
Do you guys have any, I guess, like educational? Obviously, on the website, you guys have all your blogs and things like that and articles. But do you have some sort of like formal education process? So it's like, if, say I wanted to at my gym be a Catalyst coach or something like that. Do you guys have something?
Yep. Yeah. We have a certification program, 2 levels. I forget when I started that, but probably like 2011 or 12 or something. So that's been around for a while. We actually used to have affiliate gyms, but that whole thing kind of just like lost popularity, and there didn't really seem to be a point to keep doing it. So I got rid of that a couple of years ago. But yeah, we've got certified Catalyst coaches all over the world. Okay. And so it used to all be used to all be live seminars. You had to attend a seminar and then do the testing. Because of my schedule, I don't offer many seminars anymore. Like I'm doing 1 a year maybe. And that's just because my wife makes me. But we offer the course all online now too. So that's why we can get people, in Korea or all over the place who are able to do it in a much more kind of financially viable way.
So my question about the affiliate thing and like the running out of steam or whatever, like the popularity of it, was it just a matter of the inquiries or the pipeline of potential people to become an affiliate wasn't there anymore? Or like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was definitely less demand. And you saw the same thing reflected in the CrossFit world, right? Which is really where that affiliate model comes from. The number of affiliates just boom plummeted, and I think so much of it is people realizing like, hey, this stuff is so well established, I don't have to pay them. I don't even know what it is, $3,000 a year now. It was $500 when I had an affiliate 100 years ago. And it's like, why are we doing this? We don't need this. People know what we're doing as CrossFit, and so it's the same kind of thing where I think people have their own gyms, they have their own culture. It's doing well enough for them. And I think they want their own brands. Like, and understandably, like I wouldn't want to be anyone else's affiliate. I want to do my own thing. And like, hey, this is what we do. This is my way. So they can kind of have the best of both worlds now, as they can say, hey, I have a Catalyst Athletics coaching certification. Like, I'm familiar with their methodology. I can coach you that way. But this is my gym. This is my team, my club, whatever. And ultimately, I think that makes more sense. And the affiliate thing was honestly, it was more of an administrative hassle for me than anything else. It didn't seem, even if it had not lost popularity, I think I would have shut it down eventually, just because it was, I don't think it was providing enough of a useful service to people.
The juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
Nope.
All right. So Christian, before you put Greg on the hot seat, my last question as a novice in the weightlifting world, like in fighting or boxing or whatever, how do you go about strategizing what the best weight class for a lifter is to sit in? Have you ever had an example where you suggested someone lost or gained a ton of weight, or, yada, yada, yada?
So yeah, a lot of thought goes into weight class. And it's a tricky thing to do, because so much of it is dependent on that person's kind of genetic predisposition, right? So if you, essentially with weightlifting, what you're trying to do is match height and body weight, right? Because this whole sport is based on mechanics. So if you are a taller lifter, you are at more of a mechanical disadvantage than a shorter person. That is why the smaller weight classes lift much more weight relative to their own body weight than the bigger weight classes. It's just mechanics. So if you are, say, like me, right? I'm either 5'11" or 6 feet. I honestly don't even know. I naturally would probably be around like 175, 180 pounds. I competed as a 105 kilo lifter, which is 235 pounds. I had to gain way past my natural body weight because I was too damn tall to compete with the, guys who actually weighed, say, 85 kilos, which is what it was back then. You're just, there's no way you're going to do it. Now, there are anomalies to that, of course, just like in fighting. You're going to have some crazy, height and reach differences here and there. But for the most part, you're going to see people who are pretty well matched up for the same obvious kinds of reasons. So like, I remember weighing in, even as a 94 kilo lifter, I remember weighing in the mid 2000s with these other 94s, and they're like up to my chin. I'm like, man, I am such an idiot. Like, I've got to eat. And so you're going to have situations like that where you have to get someone into a higher weight class. The more competitive you want to be, the more important this becomes. If you're just a recreational lifter, you just want to go have fun, maybe do some local meets, do some, American Open Series, I would not mess with body weight more than like maybe don't drink water the day of weigh-in. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be running around in your rubber suit for 2 weeks, like Loudon Swain, like killing yourself, for a local meet. I really hope some people got that reference, but I see you guys grinning over there. But so that same lifter I was talking about with the elbow issue. So when I first started coaching her, she was like a 76. Based on the competitive landscape of the US, I moved her to an 81. So I had her gain weight, which thankfully she was okay with. It can be tricky with people. Guys don't want to lose weight. Girls don't want to gain weight. That tends to be the rule of thumb. But she was all for it, super competitive, great athlete. But then what happened is you look at the situation for like the Pan Am championships, and she has better chances making the team as an 81. But for world championships, she has a better chance as an 87. So when we try to make that world team, it's as an 87. Now, she doesn't weigh 87. She'll weigh 81.05 if she has to. But then when it's time to make a Pan Am team, we will, make that 81 class. So there's always considerations like that.
Interject, sorry to interrupt you. So everyone that's listening that maybe is not familiar with kilos, that's like a 12 to 15 pound swing right there that she would have to gain.
Yeah, so 6 kilos, like 15 pounds or 14 pounds or so.
Yeah. So that's not nothing. That's a significant,
No, I mean, in her case, we weren't actually changing her weight that much. It was 1 or 2 kilos just across that threshold, because she was strong enough to compete with that bigger class without having to totally fill it out.
Okay.
That's a good point though, is I would never have her actually gain and lose that much twice a year. That's just too much. And there are weightlifters who cut just like medically terrible amounts of weight on a regular basis, but you watch their career progress. As they get older, it gets harder and harder and harder, and the results get worse and worse and worse. Like your body just can't do that. If you are good at manipulating water weight, you know how to do some hyperhydration, maybe sweat out some, spit out some, you can cut a pretty good amount of weight last minute without really losing much performance. But unlike fighting and even powerlifting, who tend to have weigh-ins like 24 hours before, so you've got an entire 24 hours to rehydrate, reconstitute, go back from a piece of beef jerky to like an actual living human. We weigh in 2 hours before our session starts.
Wow.
That's when weigh-ins start. So you might actually only weigh in an hour and 15 minutes before that session starts. So the options are very different. And a lot of people try to treat it the same way, and you can't do it. Like, you can't lose and then rehydrate that much in that tiny window.
Is that another rule that people either love or complain about? Like, oh, we should have it 24 hours in advance, or, oh no, we should keep it the same. Like, what's the world of?
I have not heard very many people wanting to do a 24-hour weigh-in. And I'm glad, because it just kind of logistically dealing with that with like a full team of lifters would be a hassle. But certainly there are people who struggle with the weight cutting thing. And, it's like, well, you don't have to. It's called weightlifting, not weight losing. Like, you don't have to be cutting 8 fucking kilos. Or people will look at it and like, hey, if I weighed this, I could totally qualify for nationals. Like, but you don't weigh that. And getting down there means that you're not going to lift what you lift right now. And so there's like this disconnect. It's like, oh, I just have to lose 9 kilos and keep lifting the same amount. And it's like, well, every once in a while, there's someone out there who can pull off something like that, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. Christian.
Hot seat.
Oh, God.
All right, Greg, couple questions. First thing that comes to mind, it'll be harmless, I promise.
I'm not worried. I'll just lose my internet connection all of a sudden if I have to.
All right. Would you rather move fast or lift heavy?
At this point in my life, move fast.
Coffee
10 years ago, lift heavy.
All right. Coffee or pre-workout?
If I had to choose one for the rest of my life, coffee.
Favorite lifting shoe?
2008 Adidas Ironworks 3. Good luck finding them.
Favorite brunch food?
Oof. Like stuffed hash browns.
Last song you listened to?
Oh, man. What is the last song I listened to? I think it was a Faith No More song, actually, on Pandora. It would have been... I think it was off the Angel Dust album. I can't remember which one it was, though. I wasn't paying attention.
Snatch or clean and jerk?
Snatch, because the clean and jerk has a jerk in it.
Power or squat?
Oh, power for sure.
One movement for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pull-ups.
Boom. There you have it.
Pull-ups. Oh. I was surprised by that, and the move fast answer.
The move fast, yeah. I was surprised by move fast.
Well, I'm 42 years old. It's lifting heavy just doesn't have the same appeal to me anymore. Mainly because I can't do it.
I'm sure relative to us normal civilians, you lift plenty heavy, I'm sure.
I'm trying. I'm just honestly at this point, I'm just trying to keep outlifting my female lifters, and it's getting really hard with a couple of them.
That's like Christian, one of our team members, a girl. She's very strong. And what is it? The 100-pound rule?
100-pound rule.
Oh, yeah.
Got to be 100 pounds heavier.
Got to outlift by 100 pounds.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've been holding up that end of the bargain, though, Christian. Have you?
No, I have.
All right.
That the snatch ladder for semis, it's a 100-pound rule.
All right. All right. So in our after hours, as we wrap this up, I think that's a great conversation. Or one last question to have you answer. I really appreciate your time, Greg. What would you suggest to those who maybe live their life in the sport or enjoyed the sport, but they're getting older and fitness might look a little different for them? What kind of suggestions you maybe have for older athletes as they navigate through aging?
I mean, I'm experiencing this right now. I'm going through my athletic midlife crisis as we speak. Start looking toward real world functionality rather than athletic performance per se is what I would recommend. So I still want to be able to snatch and clean and jerk decent numbers, but I also want to be able to run again. I want to be able to climb ropes. I want to be able to, you know, do all this work I do on my property. I want to be able to you know, do a 50-mile backpacking trip on a whim. And so for me now, it's kind of getting back to more like what I was like before I got into weightlifting, which was having a very broad range of capabilities. I sound like I'm talking about CrossFit.
So
right now,
CrossFit.
but I swear I'm not.
So CrossFit.
But I'm looking at, that's why I said real world functionality, not like a range of gym exercises, which is cool. I really don't mean this to bash CrossFit by any means. It's a great thing for a lot of people, but I mean like, you know, can you pick up your friend's refrigerator and move it for him without, you know, being hospitalized for a week on a morphine drip because you blew your back out? You know, can you do the activities that you want to be able to do without physical limitations? And so that's been the key for me, is like, yeah, I still love weightlifting. I like being able to do it, but not to the point that I'm willing to exclude all these other capabilities to hold on to what I can, you know, at this age. I don't need to do it anymore.
All right, cool.
Great
All
answer.
right. Yeah, love that. I love that you said you're like athletic midlife crisis. I'm in the midst of it as well.
It's brutal.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today. For this episode, really appreciate.
Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch you later. See ya.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. All right, everyone. That was Greg Everett from Catalyst Athletics. We'll have the website in the description of this episode, as well as his Instagram handle. Make sure you share all 10,000 of his posts so we can bump up that algorithm so we can get his stuff seen a bit more. I was looking at his numbers, though. He's not doing bad. Maybe relative to how many followers he has, then, yeah, the engagement could be higher because he's got 200-some thousand, but damn Instagram, I'm right along with him.
Yeah,
all right, Christian.
I feel that.
Happy Thursday. Can't wait to see you this weekend. I'm here, everyone, in the Upper East Side of New York City. Going to be traveling to Long Island to see Team MFLH taking on the Granite Games, everyone's favorite semi in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
It'll be a good time, man.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna order some medals on Amazon just in case for this year. Okay, I'm gonna pack some of that. Just, you know, I'll run them up. If you're standing on that podium next weekend empty-handed, I'm gonna run up there with my Amazon.
Yo, seriously,
my Amazon medals and put them around your neck. Okay? I'll get enough for everyone. Actually, I'll be everyone's favorite. You have no comment to that.
No, I love it. I mean, listen,
you don't want to go on the record about what happened. But, all right, I'm gonna get us in trouble. Let me get off this podcast. Bye. All right, everyone. Joe Roscoe here. That was Christian Harris and our guest Greg Everett from Catalyst Athletics. Thanks again. If you haven't tried out movefastlift.com as far as Christian's training or our apparel, please do so. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Keep moving fast and lifting heavy out there. Later.